So I don't know if you noticed this or not, bro, but it seems throughout the time that I've taught, we tend to lose people at blue belt. There seems to be a little attrition or burnout rate, specifically to blue belt. Once you get them to purple, most likely you're going to see them through. White, they're all gung-ho and excited about it. Why do you think that is?
I think several things. I think we always assume, because really there's 5 belts, and if you were to break it down, there's really like 3 belts, right? Like everybody starting day one is a white belt. Maybe it takes a year to get to your blue belt. So that year passes pretty quick, and we lose a lot of people at white belt. It's just that nobody remembers their name oftentimes. Does that make sense?
It does.
Right? They come and they go. They're here a week or two, or they're a day or two, and they're gone, right? So they realize it's hard, and they don't want any, you know what I mean? Or they've got submitted by a 14-year-old girl and their ego is too much for them to handle, and so they don't show up again. By the time they get to blue belt though, they went from white to blue in maybe about a year. The fact that it takes so long, and that's a huge progress moment, right? For me, for instance, like people could be a blue belt and only trained a year. There could be people, like I was gonna say, for myself, I was a white belt for like 2 years and a blue belt for 5, which means I was a 7 years training and I was a blue belt. So those people compete, right? A 1 year versus 7 years, it's a huge spectrum of difference in a blue belt. So maybe there's stripes, and we all have a max potential, right? Based on age, based on size, based on our strength or weakness and things like that. So that's a really hard thing to get through, right? Say it takes you 4 years or 5, whatever it is, 3 years even, to get from blue to purple.
Right.
That a lot of life happens in that amount of time too, right? Maybe they have kids, maybe they get married, maybe the wife or husband have other priorities for them and things like that, or the job, or so a lot of life happens outside of here that also goes on, and I think we lose people for that as well. The other challenge, and I think another big reason why we lose people at blue, is there's always plateaus, right? And we all hit them. And usually if you stick it out, you have this huge climb afterwards. But I think when people hit those plateaus, they're kind of lost, and they're like, oh, I'm not progressing, I'm not getting better, I don't want to go. This new kid smashed me and I've been training for 3 years already, and some high school wrestler come in and beat me up, or you know what I mean? And so again, our ego starts to eat at us, and our plateaus, we have to climb through those. And again, I think once we make it to purple, we've kind of committed ourselves, like, especially brown, right? Once you're a brown, I've seen very few people that made it to brown and that quit. And I've seen it, but again, it's usually life happening or something like that. Or they feel like, okay, I have a pretty good grasp of it, and their goal was not all the way. And I think the last thing about that is the false summit, right? Is they're a white belt and they're starting on this path and they see this blue belt as their goal. They get that goal, right? And it's a false summit, and there's so much more, right? So much more work to do, and I think they hit that and they're like, I bit off more than I could chew, right?
But I reached the smile marker.
Yes, and so they feel satisfied, and it's a great point, right? I mean, one of my criteria for a blue belt is if some fresh person were able to walk in the room and my 4-stripe white belt could beat that person who happens to be 20 to 50 pounds heavier than them, then that's a blue belt to me, right? Like a person off the street, and they're bigger than the other person. So that's kind of one of my criteria for who should get blue belt. And so a lot of times that's a great thing. Like they're much safer in the world, right? Being a blue belt. But they're missing out on so much more learning. They're missing out on so much more community and friendship building. And just because, the proximity of training with somebody so close in jiu-jitsu is a little different even than back when we were doing taekwondo, right? I mean, a lot of times I describe it as like moving targets when it came to taekwondo, right? They're my friends, but they were moving targets. I was trying to just kick them, right?
I know.
Yeah. But then, MMA, again, same kind of thing. And it goes back to like wrestling and boxing. You're trying to be the toughest person in the gym in those kind of scenarios, right? MMA, wrestling, boxing. Whereas in jiu-jitsu, it's not that at all, right? It's the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? You don't want to be the best necessarily in that room. You want to have guys that are or girls that are gonna push you and make you better, and we're gonna struggle up, and like I said this morning about rising tides lift all boats. So we wanna bring each other up. And so I think those are several reasons. I kind of got a little off tangent there with the blue belt thing, but I think that's probably several of the biggest reasons why we see it.
If you were talking to a blue belt right now that was thinking about just hanging it up, I got my blue belt, I'm good.
Sure.
A little bit of jiu-jitsu goes a long ways, and that kind of mentality. why should he push through or she push through the pain and the time commitment and juggling life and jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, no doubt it's hard, right? It's hard, but that's why we do it, right? I think that's the idea, because David Goggins talks about callousing the mind, right? And we had mentioned earlier about, like, I'm not fighting with my person, with the opponent, right? I'm fighting with my demons of doubt, with my internal struggles, with all those things. Can I balance life and bills and work and family and time for myself, right? So Krista, my wife, and I, you know, we're big on, like, she takes an hour or two to do her thing and go work out, right? And I do the same thing, so that we have our time to kind of clear our minds. So I think as a healthy, if you're into personal growth and not just physical, but the mental, everything else, I think it's a big step forward to just commit to that full summit and not that false summit,
Right.
you know? And it's hard, and I get it. You know, obviously we went through that.
Yeah,
And life happened, and working 3 jobs and trying to mix it in with family, and it's hard.
it's part of paying your dues, but it's really more about the process and the journey than the outcome.
And the other thing, lastly, about that is, because of those bonds that we've grown with our teammates, right? They rely on us too, right? So I feel like some of it is, if I were to leave, then I'm abandoning my friends and family and people that rely on me to help get them better.
Right.
You know, so you could take it 2 ways. Either selfishly, like, I need to get better, I need to progress in my own head and my own physicality, and this is a great way to do it. And I joke about aging athletes, right? It's a perfect sport for an aging athlete because of low impact and stuff. But secondarily, to my teammates, I should be here to help you get better, right? And help you. If you have a tough day, we can talk about your day and things like that, and you can kind of clear the air for you.
It's that mentality you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Lifting each other up.
Lift each other up, yeah.